an inspiring officer from the Indian Navy, Ms. Arpita Sathe. She has completed her schooling at Dr. Kalmadi Shamrao High School and Junior College before pursuing mechanical engineering at Cummins College, Pune. Her journey into the armed forces began with NCC, where she developed discipline, confidence, and leadership skills. After several attempts at the Services Selection Board, she finally achieved her dream of joining the Indian Navy as a pilot. She underwent rigorous training at the Indian Naval Academy and was commissioned as a sub lieutenant on 30th December 2024. Today, she is here to share her journey, challenges, and experiences, and to inspire our students to dream big and work towards their goals. Welcome, ma'am. I would then like to introduce Tanmay sir. Dr. Tanmay Sadhana Satish is a research scientist at the University of Münster, Germany. He has studied physics, biophysics, and biology, bringing together different areas of science in his work. His research focuses on understanding how individual cells behave and respond to their surroundings. He has published 5 research papers in international journals and has spoken at several international conferences. He has also guided students in their research projects and represented students at various academic levels. As a student, he won first place in a physics model making competition for designing his very own microscope. Today, he's here to share his journey and inspire our students to explore their interests in science and beyond. And lastly, we have Tejas sir. Tejas Ingre is a marine engineer and an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience. He has worked on ships and gained experience working with people from different countries. He currently manages his family business, combining his technical knowledge with management and problem solving skills. He is also involved in heritage conservation, environmental sustainability, and nature conservation. Apart from his work, he enjoys writing, learning languages, playing the keyboard, and working with animals. As a proud alumnus of Dr. Kalmadi Shamrao High School, he's here to share his career journey and experiences with all of us. I would like to welcome all three of you for our very first Parichay Diwas. I'm sure all the students, after hearing your introductions, are interested and excited to learn more about your journeys and your current fields. With this, let's begin with our panel discussion. However, before that, I would like to request all the students to note down their questions in the chat box. Please do not unmute yourselves and ask any questions. Please note them down in the chat box and write the name of the panelist who the question is being addressed to. And at the end of the session, we will definitely try to cover all the questions. I would now like to hand over to Shraddha ma'am.
Thank you, Anuja ma'am. So I would like to begin with Arpita ma'am. So my first question would be to you. So you being a woman and being in such an unconventional field, how do you mentally prepare yourself for uh, such a profession?
Um, okay, first of all, Jai Hind everyone. Good evening, ma'am. I would like to thank you all for inviting me to this Parichay Divas. I'm really honored and also wishing all of you a very happy 80th Independence Day in advance. So, as you, in your question itself, you mentioned that being a woman. So, in this profession, there's nothing as a woman or a man. We all are equal. We are officers. That there's just one gender neutral term. We are officers. There is no differentiation, any kind of uh, what you can say. We are just same. We are equal. We are treated equal in the academy, in the forces. There's no differentiation between us. So mentally, I think like any other profession, this is also a profession. It has its own way of life, but definitely, again, it's a job. So everything boils down to how badly you want it, how badly you want to wear the uniform, how badly you want to represent yourself out there in terms of serving your nation. So I think the mental part is done beforehand. Like you have to be mentally prepared. I think more than me, my parents, the support that I got from my parents is more important because any one of us can go through these challenges. But the fact that our parents are ready to send us away, that is where the real big deal is. So I would really thank my parents for supporting me enough, and not just be me. My younger brother is also in academy currently, away from social media, away from the news, everything. He's just training. Maybe he'll be heading for his dinner in a few minutes. So mentally, I think my parents have played a very huge role in this.
We are really happy to see that, like you mentioned, there is really equality. Like you mentioned, there's no difference in gender. So we are really happy to know. And like you mentioned, the will you the person carries, like the passion they have for this field and the support that has helped. So thank you for answering this. I would like to move to Dr. Tanmay. So I would like to ask you that you've shifted from one field to another. You have varied experiences in different fields. So can you just share with us ki, what was the thought process while making these decisions and across, like moving across the different fields?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for this opportunity as well to speak to class 10 students. I studied and graduated in physics originally. So I was somebody who really liked equations, who liked mathematics. I was always drawn to these things where you see people standing in front of really big blackboards and writing equations and spending hours trying to understand or explain something in their surroundings using it. And I felt at that point, once I was done with my third year, that I wanted to apply this to something that is meaningful. And for me, that was biology, because biology represents life. It represents a lot of things which we closely associate even with ourselves. And I thought that physics is a nice system to describe it. That's why I moved to a more interdisciplinary field of biophysics, moving from physics towards biology. And I finally then did a master's in biophysics and then did a PhD in cell biology because I was really interested in seeing how individual cells actually behave in a living organism and how we can learn physical principles about them using microscopy as well as physical equations. So that's how I slowly transitioned from physics towards more biology.
Like you mentioned, you learned a lot like physics and bio, and then you thought of applying this, and that is why you have moved across. So I think this is a very nice example of how one can implement all of their knowledge and accompanied with interest as well. Sure. Thank you, sir. And we'll get back to you. Next, I would like to move with Mr. Tejas. And I would like you mentioned, sir, you are working currently in non-destructive testing. And this is something that is a very least explored career. And, not very know about this career. So would you like to tell us in simple terms what this career looks like and where can the students find this in their daily life or how is the application in the daily life? We'll really like to listen to this.
Okay. First of all, uh, early happy Independence Day to everybody. And
Happy Independence
actually, I
Day, sir.
consider it very fortunate that we are in the presence of somebody from the armed forces on the eve of the Independence Day. So it is really fortunate. And thank you for giving me the chance to speak to the students. So regarding NDE or NDT, they are both interchangeable terms. To give you a layman's perspective, everybody is aware of medical checkups. So we do X-rays, we do ultrasounds, we do endoscopy and all. That is for the human body. To apply the same thing to animals, it becomes veterinary science. But everything else, which is inanimate, that can also be inspected using the same technology which we use for humans. For example, X-rays, we can take X-rays of anything in the world. So you asked me what can be done in the day-to-day life. Anybody can look at anything around you. Literally anything. You are driving a car, you're driving a motorcycle, each and every component of the motorcycle, so brakes, steering, knuckles, your wheels, everything. You get power every day, electricity every day. It is generated in a power plant. So those are big uh, installations. There you have boilers, heat exchangers, turbines, everything is happening over there. You have civil structures, walls, where you have earthquakes are happening. So then they have some damages. They can be inspected. Your temples, museums, everything which is the idols inside, the artifacts inside a museum, and so with the exception of living humans and living animals, everything else under the sun can be inspected by NDT. So NDT is mainly non-destructive testing. Similarly to how when you conduct an X-ray of your body or when you do an ultrasound for a kidney stone, it does not actually damage your body. So when you're checking your kidney for a kidney stone, your kidney is not damaged. It will only tell you what is inside. That is the exact same principle applied to inanimate objects.
Thank you, sir. Like you mentioned, it's just like a basic X-ray that you can have of different animate objects. Like you mentioned, we can have any vehicles, any temple
Madam, it should be
articles,
inanimate objects, not animate. Inanimate objects,
inanimate.
non-living things.
Yes,
Non-living things, and in living
yes,
things, you have plants, plants and flowers.
Thank you for correcting me, sir. And like you mentioned, it is like where we can use it in daily life would be like the vehicles or the temple articles, or like you mentioned, even predicting like earthquakes also. This is all where we can find this field. And yes, like you mentioned, it is a very least explored. So we are really nice. We are really happy to know about this. So yes, thank you, sir. I would like to move back to Miss Arpita. I would really like to know how your day look like when you are in your training period or when you are on your field. I'm sure everyone is really excited to know how it goes. So can you just share a few things about your day?
Yes, sure. So officially our day begins at 6:30 a.m. So in military terms, we call our clock is not till 12, it's a 24-hour clock. So 0630 is our first ODT, which is mostly PT or drill or swimming classes sometimes. So we start our day by ODTs, but unofficially our day starts at 4:30, where we wake up, our seniors wake us up for informal PT sessions because we have really hard PT standards. And for someone like us who like for a first termer basically to match to the academy standards, it's very difficult. So our PT mostly is the unofficial part that happens at 4:30 a.m. So 4:30, then you go back, you change, then you go for the official ODTs. Then after ODT you go for breakfast. Official timings for breakfast are 15 minutes, but we being first termers, second termers, we have to clear off in 3 minutes, mostly 1 minute, because it takes a lot of time to reach the mess. Also you have to run, you get rogered while you reach the mess, so it's bit of the task. Sometimes you avoid having breakfast altogether. So first few months it's really difficult to complete all 3 meals. Rather, even having one meal is difficult. So, post that in Indian Naval Academy per se, after breakfast we have classes, normal classes in which I am a direct entry officer. So, our classes were mostly of the naval orientation course, wherein we were taught about wherein we were taught about basic navy, the basic how navy works, and not any branch specific information. So till 1:30, that is 1330, we have our classes. We go for lunch again, running, we get rogered by the senior termers while we reach the mess. Sometimes we don't even reach the mess by the time lunch break gets over. Then then we have PT. In academy, like there are a lot of events that take place. So initially the cross country, so you go and you just keep on running. 4:30 a.m. you wake up, you run 8 kilometers, you come back. After lunch you run 8 kilometers again. You come back, you go for the evening ODTs. And again at night post dinner you go for run. So first 1 month is completely running that all the squadrons participate in. It is a very grand competition that takes place across all the academies. So after that you have a lot of events like boxing is there, rowing is there, then inter squadron games are there. So the academy keeps you engaged at all times, so you're never free, you don't have phone. I remember we used to get a small dabba phone on Sunday, that too for 10 minutes. So there are no SIM cards that actually work in the academy. So hardly you get 2 3 minutes. You have to call your parents. You just tell them I'm okay, you're okay, okay, fine. That's it. Next 1 week you're on your own. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember much of it because most of it was so intense that now post academy it's very difficult to jot down all the details because most of it we can't even say out loud. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. I see, like you mentioned, early mornings and all of the hectic schedules you had. And like you mentioned, different physical activities. You mentioned running, which you had in the initial months, and that too, like you mentioned, in the morning and the evening as well. And it is really nice to see that along with running, you mentioned a different physical activities or competitions you used to have. And that is a lovely thing. And I think what you mentioned, the basic thing which I identified is something like you have a disciplined schedule, and the consistency is the only thing that you have to keep going on. And it might be very difficult to, like you mentioned, you cannot talk with your parents, but still you just have to, 10 minutes you have in the day, and that might be very difficult. But
No,
thank you
day
for sharing.
week.
Sorry, yes, in a
Yeah.
week. So thank you for sharing your experience, ma'am. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Tanmay. Like you mentioned, sir, you have worked through plant cells, and like you are working in gene modulation as well. So this is something that is very different. So can you just explain to us in simple terms, how the students can identify that you are working with? So it will be insightful for us as well as the students.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds something complicated. It's also used by companies
Yes,
to
sir.
make things scary a little bit for you with genetically modified organisms. But it's a very standard practice if you walk into a biology lab nowadays, because it's the basis from which we start our experiments. So I think very basically, I can explain that information in cells flows from DNA towards proteins. This is something that students learn in science most definitely by 10th, that DNA is the thing that is going to showcase how you look as a living thing and control a lot of your features. And if you want to bring about certain changes within your host cell, you can modify the DNA of that host cell and carry out a genetic modification and then see the change. For example, if you want to make the cell look green under a microscope, you can insert a specific piece of DNA that will produce a green protein in the end for that cell. So when you shine light on it, you can see a nice shining cell under the dark, and that's how you know you have actually genetically modified that organism or that cell. And it's a very standard practice for us to know when things are going wrong in cells as well. So you can tag certain genes which are performing badly in a certain cell type with a reporter like a dye or a fluorescent probe. And when it malfunctions inside the cell, you can see it immediately because it will produce this bad protein essentially inside it because of this foreign piece of DNA. And then you know, okay, this is a bad cell and this is a good cell. And this becomes really important when you're looking at cancerous cells, for example, from regular healthy cells, and this is a way to differentiate them as well.
So like you started, it's like the DNA thing to the protein cell. And I'm sure everyone has studied this in their school years. And this is like, thank you for explaining it in a very simple terms, because we could actually relate to the experiments we used to have, like you mentioned, staining of the DNAs, and which we did conduct in our school years. And I'm sure the students can also relate to what they are doing right now. And like this is something, I guess it's learning whatever we learn in the school, it's just implication of what we are doing. And this is really nice of jotting it down. So thank you, sir. I'll get back to you soon. Yes, next I would like to go to Mr. Tejas. Sir, even in your resume I have seen that you've worked across different fields. You have worked as a marine engineer, you are now working in non-destructive testing, and you are also working in the conventional field. So how did you move and different through these fields, and how has it through all of these fields, how could you shift?
Okay. How was I able to shift? To give you a one word simple answer, which I believe many students and especially their parents would agree, I get bored very easily. Boredom was the main reason why I was able to do this. Because to be really honest, it's not like I divert from things. I still am true. I did my engineering, so I'm still, the core of it is still engineering. But if I continue doing one thing regularly, I eventually end up getting bored of it. So then what do you do when you're bored? You can either have a look at, maybe watch some reels online, or you can, watch some videos, watch some movies and all, but you cannot keep doing it regularly. So for example, if I'm traveling on a 4 hour journey from Pune to Mumbai by taxi, I can't watch reels on my phone for 4 hours. So then when you sit idly, okay, then your mind starts wandering. So sticking true to the engineering thing which I did, because I was very passionate about being an engineer. So when I did my engineering, and then my mind starts wondering, okay, this is what I'm doing now. I went into non-destructive testing through my family business. which is again an engineering base. And then from there, I was like, okay, we are doing NDT for metals. Metals can also, quite a few of the old heritage weapons, for example, are metals. Arrows, cannons, cannonballs, shields. So if we are applying a certain technology now to inspect boilers or turbine blades, a turbine blade is a blade, a sword also has a blade. Can we use the same technology to the sword? So we did some trials, it was successful. So okay, that is something we could do. Then I came to a thought, okay, swords are metallic weapons. If you go even to prehistoric times, stone tools and stone weapons were there. So can the same technology be again extended to stone? So we did some experiments, we did some trials. Sorry, I won't say experiments, trials. We found out it can be done with little modifications. So we entered into that. Then stones are solid particles. If you crush them, it becomes powder. Soil is powder. So can you do the same test which you did on stone on soil particles? So again, we did some trials. We came to the conclusion, yes, we can do it. So this soil then came for archaeological excavations, because wherever they take out soil, we can analyze it. If the soil is suitable for, if you can do the same test for archaeological soil, it can it be done for agricultural soil? Because again, it is soil. So again, we moved into agriculture. We did some tests. Okay, we got some results. From agriculture, we made okay. The other place where soil is used is mainly sports. So football fields, cricket grounds, and all that. So can we do that? So this is how we move into sports and sustainability. And to connect it back to metals, even in sports, we have lots of metallic structures. Basketball hoops are there, your bleachers are there, and everything is there. So again, it connects it to metals. Okay, that is going to be corroding every day, lying in the sun, wind, rain, snow, sun, everything is there. It's having an impact on all the materials. So this is how we cycle through. So boredom was the main reason why it happened through this, because if I'm keeping on doing something for years on end, small branching I like to do. It's not like I want to focus on one only. I will not leave the focus, but maybe you can branch out a little bit in your spare time. Okay, instead of I'm not saying you should not watch reels and videos. Of course, you should do that, because it is a way of releasing your relaxing your brain. But don't spend the entire free time on doing it. And I've heard lots of people complain that I get bored very easily, or even parents say that my child gets bored very easily, he doesn't do. So this is one way you can focus your energy, direct your mind.
Like you mentioned, sir, definitely you have, like, you started with the non-destructive testing in the metals, but like you used your knowledge through, like you thought of, you had the curiosity, and you thought of exploring it in the other innate things as well, and that is why you tried different objects which you can use in your field. So somewhere I guess your curiosity has been a part, and like you mentioned, like everyone has been through boredom, everyone gets bored after a while, but somewhere you have learned, shifting your boredom to something, positively channelizing it, and that is why you've explored so many things. And like you mentioned, always keeping your mind open to learn different things, to have different experiences, applying their knowledge to different fields, and that is why this has inspired you to move from one field to another. I'm sure this is a new way we have learned to shift our boredom through positive feedbacks as well. So yeah, thank
Shraddha ma'am, if I can just jump in here for a minute.
Yes, sure.
Pallavi ma'am has joined. I would like to welcome Mrs. Pallavi Nayak ma'am, who's the head of academics at the Kaveri Group of Institutes. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out the time to attend this program today.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
Shraddha ma'am, I think you can carry on.
Sure. Thank you, Anuja ma'am. I would like to ask the next question to Ms. Arpita. Ma'am, I'm sure that many of the students, or even in our childhood age, we had thought of this as our career, like this profession as our career. But it is it is very difficult to manage it, or to mentally prepare and go ahead to this career. So, what do you think, that can help anyone to be consistent in this field, or they can keep going on in when they are in your field and they keep going working in this field?
Okay, as I initially mentioned that everything boils down to how badly you want it. So I appeared for the services selection board's interview for the 8 times. I got screen out 3 times, conferenced out 3 times. These are the terminologies which will explain it later. But I got recommended in my seventh attempt and eighth attempt. Seventh attempt I got merit out, and the eighth attempt was the one after which I joined the Indian Naval Academy. And there's a saying that fall 7 times but stand up the eight. So everything, literally everything, boils down to how badly you want it, how madly you want it. Like, there were times where I was not able to think about anything but the uniform. So everything just, like, it's not only about serving the nation, but the way of life, the routine, the discipline that the service gives, the opportunities, the different, maybe, what I can say, um, like, it's a very different thing in general. Like, you get to experience things that no other civilian can. Like, I have been to places where I could only go because of the card that I hold. So there are numerous things that you can never imagine, but you can experience only when you join it. And you can join it only when you are perseverant enough that, in spite of the failures, in spite of the setbacks, that the process you go through, you are still, you at the back of the mind, you only have that I want to go into the forces, want to don the uniform. So I think that is what kept me going through all the 8 attempts. And what still keeps me going is the uniform. Definitely the smile that my parents receive when people come and tell them. So I think that's it. Yeah.
I'm sure, ma'am, like you mentioned, the uniform is the one thing that keeps you going, and I'm sure we are really proud when we see any colonel in that uniform or in either defense. It's really a proud moment, and I'm sure there is a lot of hard work that you have done to gain that where you are. And like you mentioned, it's not about how bad you fail; it is about how better you get back up. And like you mentioned, how badly you want it. So it's all about the passion and the consistency that you have to keep to reach there. And I'm sure this is going to definitely help us. And highlighting the passion part is really helpful. Yes, thank you, ma'am. Um, I would like to ask the question to Mr. Tanmay. So during your growing years, you had developed a microscope, and you really had for the competition. We would really like to know how did you go from the research part till the execution of building a microscope? So can you just briefly tell us about this process?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Honestly, it was a hobby project. We did it in the first year of my undergraduate education in physics. And what we started with was genuinely something that all science labs have, which are glass capillaries. They are simple, they are cheap, they are plentiful. And what you can do using these capillaries is make an excellent lens. If you hold a capillary over a burner enough, it starts melting. And once it starts melting, it starts forming a droplet. And that droplet, if you let it settle and plunge it in cold water, is going to form a perfectly nice lens. And what this lens is the first thing that you can use to construct a microscope, because a lens can magnify things. If you place it perfectly right over in a very thin focal plane over your sample, you can see things close to 60 to 80 times in magnification. And this was a very basic, cheap microscope that we were able to make. I did it with two other students who were my colleagues. It was an idea between all of us to make this as a project. And it showed us that you don't really need a big budget to have like the basic taste of sciences, because using these kind of primitive microscopes is how people saw cells for the first time. Before that, they used to believe that people were perfectly formed with perfectly formed human beings inside them. But for the first time, when somebody saw that, okay, there's a different world all around us, there are microorganisms, there are little microbes that are moving all around us, that's when it triggered a scientific revolution also in your thoughts that things are a lot more complex than they seem. And I think students can also recreate a microscope like this in their lab if they wish to. It's rather easy to make one.
The one thing that stays with me is, like you mentioned, you don't need a much budget when you have the will to do something. And I guess, like you mentioned, it was your hobby that led to this, and using the basic knowledge that we everyone know, and how can you just transform it and put it into application. And I guess your curiosity and your willingness to try has led you to building that microscope. And we were really grateful when we saw that, and we were really excited to ask you about this. Ki how did you build the microscope? So thank you for sharing that experience, sir. So I would next like to move to Mr. Tejas Ingre. So, sir, like you have been a marine engineer, and like we have read about marine engineers, and many of the people have said that being away from the family and being on the sea for most of the time, it is usually they really find it lonely, or it is difficult to cope during those times. So, can you just highlight to us, ki, how did you move through this, and how was your experience when you were on a ship? We will really like brief experience about this.
Okay, so regarding loneliness, yes, it is something you have to consider. I mean, everybody at every point of time, one or the other point of time, will get lonely. Not just on ships, but anywhere. The fact is aggravated on board because there's not many people. But communication, I believe, is the number one way to not be lonely. Nowadays, like when I started sailing in 2008, there were no smartphones, there was no internet. So you used to have one dedicated email address and one satellite phone. Satellite phone at that time used to cost around $100 for 20 minutes. So it was not really worth buying it. So when you join as a junior, it is your seniors. But otherwise, when you go up in rank, it's both your juniors and your seniors who you form a close-knit family. If you're working together and living in the same premises for 2-3 months at a time, usually people change after a couple of months. So if I join for 6 months, somebody else will come 1 month later, somebody else will come another month later. So the dynamics keep changing. But that set of 20 to 25 people becomes your family. And communication is key. First of all, if you have something troubling you, you should go to your seniors or go to at least your peers and talk to them. If you think it is something which they cannot handle, there's a higher chain of command, and you can follow that. But apart from that, there are recreational and facilities, because living on board, although you may consider yourself to be off duty, you are on duty 24 hours. So as an engineer also, if there's an engineering emergency, you will have to rush down in the middle of the night and do something. But there are ways and means. Communication, as I said, is the key. Have good relations with people on board. Nowadays, you have Wi-Fi and internet connections on board as well. So people are actually able to video chat. So that has reduced the burden a lot. But apart from that, you have regular parties going on. You have somebody's birthday comes up, somebody's anniversary comes up. If you're because I've sailed with multinational crew, so if you're sailing with Europeans, Christmas is a very big thing there. If you sail with Filipinos, they have their own holidays there. So every holiday there's a big get together. Everybody tries to celebrate. So they do try to lighten the mood. But even in spite of that, if you really feel that okay, something is troubling me, be open about it. I myself have heard instances from my own batchmates who have taken the extreme step of ending their life. That is the most extreme step. And there is no need for anybody to think about that and go to that path. There are ways and means you can do. Tell your peers that worst case scenario, if you are absolutely unable to handle everything, just submit your resignation and come home. That is still better. It will not affect your career. You don't have to think that if I come home in the middle, I will not get another ship. It will have a bad impact on my resume. No need. That is still better than suffering. But that is the extreme step. But there are other ways in which you can deal with it. You have your own movies. You can listen to music. You have games on board. A PlayStation and all is also there on board nowadays. None of this was there when I joined. So I had to actually go to the rigor of only being on board, nothing else. And I have done 8 months at a stretch without seeing land. So that in itself was quite difficult. But nowadays it's become a lot easier.
Like you mentioned, sir, being like, even if you're not on duty, but still you're on 24-hour duty when you're on the ship, And like the thing you mentioned, the communication is the key, and reaching out
Yes.
to others, even if you feel lonely, even if it is difficult for you, but reaching out to someone you are close to and sharing your problem with them can be one thing the person can do.
So once anybody goes on board, the working structure will realize there's officers and there's crew. And usually every officer has one crew member assigned to them. So the safest person, if you are a crew member, is to talk to your officer. And if you're an officer, is to talk to your crew member. That is the safest, because that relation, if I'm there for 6 months, that crew member till he signs off will be there with me. We are working together, we're doing all the maintenance together, we're doing housekeeping together, everything is together. So we become like brothers, or if it's a female, we become like sisters. So in that case, that is the safest person you can talk to. If there's a nationality and language barrier, if I am a junior engineer, I can talk to my immediate senior. So if I'm a fourth engineer, I can talk to a third engineer. A third can talk to a fourth or a second. So then, it is a more of a comfort level. If I am, for example, I am 37 now, I am more comfortable in speaking with someone who's 40 than with someone who's 60. So once you go,
Yeah.
you will people understand the dynamics. Who's friendly, whom can I be more open with, and then that is how you take it forward.
Sure, like you mentioned, sir, there are different people on different hierarchy levels within your crew on the ship. There are different people, but the just thing is you have to reach out if you are if there is something troubling to you. And like you mentioned, there are also different activities. You have birthdays, you have parties going on the ship. There is Wi-Fi now, so there are different ways also to keep you busy, even if you are going through. But like you mentioned, communication is the key, and reaching out to others if you are suffering through this. So yes, thank you for this information, sir.
Shraddha
I would
ma'am, if I
like,
can just interrupt
yeah,
just
sure,
once more.
sure. Yes.
I would like to welcome Dr. Sadhana Nathu, who is the head of Department of Psychology at Modern College. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out the time to join us today. I would also like to welcome Mrs. Malti Kalmadi, who's the Secretary of Kannada Sangha. Thank you, ma'am, for taking out the time to join us for this event today.
Thank you. I'm just a part of the audience. I'm listening in since my son is part of the panel. So I'm very quiet audience today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Shraddha ma'am, you can continue.
Sure. Thank you, Anuja ma'am. Yes, I would next like to talk with Ms. Arpita. Ma'am, I would really like to know that, there is in the Indian defense sector as well, there is Army, Navy, and Air Force. But what made you choose Navy over Army and Air Force? We would really like to know this.
Well, Navy was my last choice, if I'm to being totally honest here. I always wanted to don the olive greens. So I wanted to go to the army. If not, I've always wanted to become an aviator in the defense forces, a military aviator. So Air Force was the second option, and third option was Navy, primarily because I didn't want to be away on ships. But sir would know better. But when I was pursuing my BTech in Cummins College, there was a session arranged by one of our professors, wherein all the naval officers from INS Shivaji Lonavala came to give us a lecture. So that time they explained how the Navy works, and that was the time where I understood that Navy is not always on water. A major portion of the Navy works on ground also, and that was a little bit of motivational part for me to join the Navy. But as I started searching and experiencing this field more, I got to know that the Indian Navy is the most techno savvy of all. It's a four-dimensional navies in air, in water, and on land. So the scope is all around. So plus the technical part gives a better scope post, since I'm a short service commissioned officer. So after commissioning also, there's a huge window of opportunities that I can still pursue while being serving the nation. So, and but all three services are the same. We are sister services to each other, and yes, the way of life in all three services is same. So now that I don the whites, I do not have any regrets.
We appreciate the honesty, ma'am. Like you mentioned, it was really your last option, but still you had kept your, kept your options open. And like you mentioned, it's the passion for the uniform which you had that kept you going. And like you mentioned, your experience when you first learned that, Navy is not only about water. This is something new for us as well, that you work on all different level. And it's a really new information for us that, it is a very techno savvy field. And we are really happy to gain these new insights from you. So thank you for sharing that, ma'am. I would next like to ask Mr. Tanmay. So you have studied in India as well as abroad, and I'm sure there is a very much debate that happens ki whether you should study in India or you should go to abroad. So, would you like to share your thoughts on this? So, what would you share your views of?
I think for me, I never really thought I would go abroad when I was doing my undergraduate education. It only happened because of the choices I made. It wasn't like my life's dream that I always want to go abroad and this is the life that I would seek out of my future. It just happened that I studied physics and I was more interested in biology. And there were not that many programs in India that were accepting people with a physics background to study biology later. You had to do it as an undergraduate course. And the course that I found happened to be in Germany. I was applying to also courses in India, looking for physics masters, which had specializations in biophysics, but none of them were as good as the program that was being offered at the university in Germany. So that made me want to move there, and it looked really good on paper. It looked like something I would be really interested in doing, and that helped me to take the plunge because it was going to a completely different system. Their system is a lot more open, I would say. It's not so I would say hierarchical that a lot of Indian colleges are, as well as schooling system is. But at the same time, it is a lot more hands-on. So that is something that you need to learn a bit differently as a student coming from an education system where knowing a lot about books and theory is something really important because it's rewarded in marks and in good placement afterwards. But there, if you cannot show that with your hands, then it's not thought to be relevant knowledge. So you really have to be good on your stuff as knowing what things you do know, but also be able to apply them in a certain way, at least in the field which I worked in. So those were the major differences I noticed, at least in the master's course as well, and the learning attitude. And since I liked my master's program, I stayed for a PhD program as well because I enjoyed genuinely the system in which I felt like I was thriving and learning something new, as well as feeling that, okay, I'm actually a smart enough student to continue in this. If I felt at any point that this is not the life for me, I would have always preferred to come back and study here, but just that things went in the right way that led to me staying there for this long.
So, like you mentioned, it looks like you were very flexible through your process. And like you mentioned, you did not think that you would go to abroad, but things happened to be in the place and that did work out for you. And also, like you mentioned, there were different systems, definitely different environment being in abroad, and a lot things differ. And you really had to be on your toes, like you mentioned, you have to show that you are there. It won't happen otherwise. So, how did it go, sir? We would like to know, like, how was it difficult to adapt to the systems there, and how did you manage through this?
I mean, it was a little bit difficult because, for example, the exams that we are used to, at least the ones that I was used to in my undergraduate, they were a lot about the things that you did in a class. There were questions which the teacher would tell you, these are the things coming for the exam. This is how you should prepare for it. I don't know, later on in undergraduate, you will also have journals, you will have guides, you will have things which directly help you to write an exam. That's at least not the exam pattern they offered there. There, it was a question. So maybe you learned how to apply a certain technique within your coursework, but in the exam, the question would be how would you apply it to something else? So you have to be creative enough to know how this process actually works. How does, for example, PCR works, which is like a standard thing you learn in biology, that you would know, okay, this is a reaction, this is how these are the components that go in. But the question in the exam would be, okay, coronavirus breaks out. What kind of PCR technique would you need to use so that people can get positive results immediately? Then you'll have to think of a little bit about what you do know about the actual application and how would you apply it in a real life scenario. So that is a little bit of a mindset change that you need to undergo as a student during this coursework, and students need to be a bit adaptable towards it, because if you're an excellent student in the Indian system, it does not mean you'll be an excellent student there. You have to be open enough to change.
Like you mentioned, we have to be adaptable. There is definitely going to be a change in the systems, the change in the format of the exams as well, and how they assess. So definitely that is going to be different. But like you mentioned, this is going to somewhere push you out to think out of the box, and they are going to promote that. And that will definitely be a challenge thing. But if you look at it, you can definitely work through it. And I guess, like Arpita ma'am mentioned, it is all about the passion, how badly you want it. So we can definitely relate it to your as well. So yes, thank you for sharing this. So
No problem.
I would next like to ask Mr. Tejas. So you have different fields as well as, like you mentioned, you have usually learned a lot of languages. You are working through a lot of fields, and there is definitely more than one or two careers you are pursuing. So how do you manage working in all of the fields? Like you are working in your NDT, you have a lot of languages. You also have a cultural heritage part that you are working with. So how do you manage a consistency through all of these more than two careers fields?
So actually, I would like to give a real life example of somebody much better
Sure,
than
sir.
me. Have you heard of Sir Brian May? He's the lead guitarist for the band Queen, and he also has a PhD in astrophysics. So he is able to do two things together. He's published various papers and done lots of research in astrophysics, along with being a founding member of the band Queen. So there is a method which I term as the alternating current method. So if you look at the alternating current, there's a sinusoidal wave. So you do not focus on everything all at once. For example, my main core business is NDT in the marine, in the metallic and industrial part. So when I am in the office, when I'm dealing with my company, that is what I focus on. If there's a very important meeting coming in the near future, my entire attention will be on that. Supposingly now when I come home and we are also working into heritage conservation. So if there's some work, unique thing under heritage conservation that comes, and if I'm not overly busy in the other field, I kind of switch it off temporarily, switch my focus to this. So although there may be 10, it's like if you look at a computer, there are 10 different tabs, but you're working on one tab, the other 9 are working in the background. They are not shut off. So you focus, prioritize what you need to do at the moment, and then compartmentalize as well. So okay, presently, for students, for example, if some of them are playing sports as well as they're studying in school. So if you have school exams coming up, you can focus on the exams. And if, for example, if you have a sports tournament coming up, you can slightly reduce your focus on the studies and focus on the training for the sports. That is something that does not mean switching it off completely. Maybe you cannot do 50-50 all the time. It has to be 80-20, 90-10, and you have to balance it. Similarly to how the sinusoidal wave of the alternating current goes, that is how you do it. But I think one more very big example is Leonardo da Vinci. He painted all these lifelike sketches by understanding the biology behind it. So what I know about him, he used to sneak into mortuaries to dissect dead bodies to see how the muscles are. And then he used to use that knowledge to sketch whatever he used to do. So again, that is something. So you cannot always give, if you have 3 interests, you cannot give 30% to each. You will have to go up and down and balance everything. But eventually it will work out.
Like you mentioned, sir, it is definitely difficult to move across. But like you mentioned, you have to prioritize things. You cannot do everything at the same time. So you have to prioritize, and then one thing at a time with entire focus. And like you mentioned, even if there are a lot of things going on in the background, you can focus one thing at a time. So you would like to add something,
To
sir?
give you a personal example, I followed when I was sailing on board, I used to be on board for 6 to 7 months a year. So during that time, my entire focus was on sailing. The remaining 5 to 6 months when I came home, I was not sailing. So that is where I used to focus on NDT. So because being a family business, I was slightly looking into that as well. So okay, now I'm at home. I don't have anything about my ship to worry about. So might as well focus my energy on something else. I will not worry about something which is coming up 3 months down the line now. But when it came time for me to join, 10-15 days before my joining date, I used to switch off from my home. I used to tell everybody at home, I'm now going into that mindset where I need to go on board. So don't disturb me when I'm doing it. So that is how you can switch over.
Thank you for sharing your personal experience. And I'm sure, like you have mentioned, During ship, you did focus where you were, and after you were off the ship, you definitely focused on what things you can explore. So, as you mentioned, one focus at a time and one thing at a time. That is how we went, and that is something that we can do when we want to pursue different things at the same time. So, yes, thank you for that insight. So, I think this is a common question that I would like to ask all of our three panelists. I'm sure being in your own fields, it is, very stressful during working hours or managing different things as well. And I'm sure stressful in their own senses according to your field. How did you manage your stress through a lot of this career, through your journey? I'm sure there are a lot of stressful elements. So can you just share a few tips for us as well as our students? How did you manage the stress? So can we start with Miss Arpita? Yeah.
My answer would be Postmates. So the bonding that I have developed in my academy days, maybe from my SSB days, everything that I could manage is because of my Postmates, because we were there for each other. We were getting Roger together, we were eating together, we were sleeping together. Whatever we did, whatever challenges we faced were together. And that is what made me come out of the academy and in a very good condition. Second is my parents. I can't thank them enough for being the support system that they were. And yes, so I think for me, stress was very different. In academy, the stress is mostly physical. Like it is mental, but it is projected in a physical manner. So we are rogered, we go through a lot of physical exercises, we are continuously on toes. But what keeps us in it, I'd say, is the Postmate spirit that binds us together. And that is where we derive all our mental strength from. So yeah, Postmates and bonding for me.
Yeah. So bonding with your friends and as well as you mentioned your parents. So these were the two support systems that help you through, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, mental stress as well as more of physical stress as well.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing, ma'am. Can I ask Mr. Tanmay, can you just share your experience?
I can. I think the most stress I felt was definitely during my PhD work. And I mean, in biology labs, things never really stop. It's kind of a diluted version of medicine because you have living cells. You have to go on weekends. You have to sit there for hours. Things die. Things have to be kept and babied around. You're sitting there from 8 a.m. until 12 in the night just in the hope that your experiment has worked. And you really start to appreciate that many things in life need to be actually balanced, because there are days and weeks where you put into this work and then realize, oh, all of that thing did not work out. And then you feel, okay, the last 3 months of my life have not worked out. What can I really do? And when you're at that point, you really realize your life cannot just be your work. It has to be all the other things that make it a happy life. It's your friends, it's your family, it's the hobbies that you're interested in. It's just finding out, I don't know, 5 minutes in a day, having a coffee outside, talking to your colleagues. And that's where I slowly started learning that, because I think the first 2 years as just devoted to work, because that's all I thought you needed to do and succeed in life. But it was all these other things that actually make you a lot happier. So I'm slowly learning. I'm still trying to do that as much as possible.
Thank you for highlighting this, sir. I'm sure, like you mentioned, working is important, but moving out of this to work, finding for at least 5 minutes of our time for ourselves, for de-stressing, like you mentioned, it can be your friends, family, or just minimal, like in having a coffee or a tea. So that is somewhere that can help managing this stress. Thank you, sir. Yes. Can I ask Mr. Tejas, how can you manage through this?
Okay, so my take on this is the polar opposite of Arpita's take. She mentioned about being in a community and people, but I was never a social person. So I mainly distress my own way. So having a varied interest in, okay, family comes first. Now when I'm managing a business, I'm anyways a family business, so we are always together. But apart from that, having around 10-15 minutes daily to do my own thing. And that is something I focus on. So as you mentioned earlier, I like learning languages. So every morning when I'm having my cup of coffee, around 15-20 minutes, I go online. I subscribe to some language apps. I go online every morning around 10-15 minutes. I do 1 or 2 lessons. So then that is my way. Okay, I have a long day coming up. At least let me do this for my thing. the exact opposite in the end of the day. If I've had a long day coming home, or if because we're managing a company, something has happened and we've been under stress, coming home, sharing it with my family, or if nothing else, again, I like to write, so I write something, or mainly having hobbies and interests is how I pursue. I'm not much of a social animal. In fact, even when I was in school, I hardly had any friends, hardly 2 or 3 friends in the entire batch of whatever 200 students were there. Even now, growing up, I hardly have 1 or 2 people who are my peers. Otherwise, I don't really socialize much. But to compensate for that, I've cultivated my own habits and interests where I take like I'm a very big fan of motorsports. So anytime there's any motorsport race or online, I log in, I watch it for a couple of hours. Okay, I'm fresh. Otherwise, I have these writing and learning languages and all. That is how I keep myself busy.
Yeah. I'm sure, sir, every person is different and everyone's way of de-stressing is a whole lot of a different way. And like you mentioned, for you, it is like learning different things or going through different experience. Like you mentioned, you also like motorsports and exploring different languages, learning through that and trying different things. So that is your definition of recessing. And I'm sure there might be some people and there might be some students who can relate to you. So, like this has highlighted it to us that everyone has a different way of de-stressing themselves. Like some can be socializing, some can be with their own thing and they can explore themselves or learning different things that can be de-stressing for them as well. Thank you for this answer, sir. So again, I have a last and a common question for all of our three panelists. So I'm sure looking at your own journeys, there are you come from different fields, have different exposure, different knowledge. Uh, can you just highlight to our students 2 to 3 qualities or skills they can cultivate in themselves to pursue any of their career, whatever they wish to? But what are the major 2 3 skills that they can cultivate in themselves? Yes. um, Anyone can start. Arpita ma'am.
Yes, the first thing that I personally have learned this way is the ability to be yourself and confident. Being confident in yourself is very much needed in life, and especially if you want to join the forces, you don't get selected because of a particular skill set. You get selected because you can be molded in a way the forces want you to be. So if you have the ability to get molded and accept the changes that are happening around, then definitely the doors are open.
Like you mentioned, being yourself and confidence, that is the basic thing everyone can have, and thank you for highlighting that, ma'am. Yes. Mr. Tanmay, can you like to share?
I think I would say being a bit open-minded. I was very harsh on myself many times as a student. I felt when things were not working out, it's my fault and it's something that I need to correct in myself. But many times it was just the situation or how things were going. And at that point, the best thing is to just know things are not working out. I need to restart something and to learn something from that experience. So being a bit open-minded towards your outcomes and learning from them.
I'm sure everyone has been there where they have been at some point they were hard on ourselves. Everyone can relate to that. But like you mentioned, being open to yourself as well. And it's all about restarting again and thinking again and starting that. So thank you for highlighting that too, sir. Yes, Mr. Tejas, can you just
For me, it would be a couple of things. One is to, although you should try to push your limits, you should also know when to let go. If you're trying to hold on to a rope and it is cutting your arms, you should know when to let go. And secondly, I would always suggest everybody, uh, people and children are born full of curiosity. Do not let that curiosity down as you grow older. Do not have a one track mind. Many people, as they grow older, they go in a career, for example, engineering. If you do, okay, firstly, when you go to college, you have science, commerce, arts. Okay, then focus on science. Then it's PCM, PCB, whatever. Okay, PCM. Then you go, okay, I'm going to focus on engineering. Then which branch of engineering are you going to specialize in it? So that becomes a one track mind. But in life, do not have a one track mind. Keep it open and also know when to let go. Because is more harmful if you continue holding on to something when you're unable to do it. Yes, push your limits. Try to give the best you can, but you should also know, I am unable to do it beyond this. I'm going to stop it. There are always, if you keep your mind open and if you have that childlike curiosity, your mind will give you a solution to something. If you find the primary pathway blocked, some other solution will come to your head, which will help you navigate that blockage. So these two are things. Know when to let go, but also keep an open mind and be childlike throughout.
Thank you for highlighting this, sir. And this is a very important point, I think. Like you mentioned, you definitely should push through the limits. You should definitely explore. You should definitely have that curiosity within yourself to push forward. But along with that, also knowing that when it is harming yourself and when you should let go. I think that is equally important along with these things. And I'm sure all of these skills that each one of you have pointed it out, I'm sure this is going to help our students. So thank you everyone for, I guess, answering these questions and being patient with me as well. So I would really like to hand it over to Anuja ma'am, and I'm sure she can take it forward.
So I think let's begin addressing student questions now.
Sure.
Tavni ma'am, if you can collate the students' questions, that would be great.
Yes, sure. Uh, uh, so the first question, the student is asking that have you noticed any change in higher education based in last 5 to 6 years? Do you think the scenarios are changing these days? What things can we so Tanmay sir, if you can.
Sure, no problem. I just could not hear you properly, but I can read the question in the chat quite
Yeah,
clearly.
or I can read it out so that everyone else can
Sure,
also.
go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, okay. So the question is, have you noticed a change in higher education in India as per education
Am I
board?
audible?
Yeah, you are now. I'll just complete the question and then you can take over from there. So the question is, have you noticed a change in higher education in India as per education abroad application based in last 5 to 6 years? Do you think scenarios are changing these days? What things can we students do for more adaptability?
Thanks a lot for the question. I definitely saw some changes, which were that students are a lot smarter. I think it's maybe because I also look at my generation a bit more jaded. And I feel that the students who apply now for programs come out a little bit smarter than what we were when we were applying. They also know a lot more. So it does feel that people coming out of the Indian education system at least know all of their prospects a lot better. And things are improving in that sense that they know that a lot more options are also present. And it's not that they did one program and then just moved to the masters within that. They're looking at interdisciplinary courses as well. And that's why private universities and universities within India as well have started offering more and more programs which are, I would say, a bit non-traditional. So it would not be just doing a master's in, I don't know, directly physics afterwards, but it would be applied physics. It might be optical physics, it might be biophysics, might be radiation physics. And in that sense, I think things are getting a little bit better. I would say as a student, what you can do more for adaptability, I think that is a little depending on how do you understand knowledge. So I think as a student, I found this quite a bit later that it's not just like knowing your syllabus is not the primary achievement as a student. It's actually to know, okay, I do know this, but what can I do with it? Because just knowing your syllabus for 10th is great. I also tried to do that. But if I had to apply it to something at that same point, I would have been very bad at it. I think I didn't become at all confident in this until I was way into my undergraduate education. That I felt okay, I'm at least understanding what I'm actually doing with it. So if you start working at this even at an earlier age, because I found this out much later, I think you would be a much more adaptable student coming from this kind of an education then.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your experience and telling the students how your experience has shaped your journey so far. I think the next question is for Arpita ma'am. The question is, how long does it take for an officer in an academy to be posted?
Okay, so this answer might be very long. So there are various entries for becoming an officer. The initial entry starts after the 12th standard. So after 12th, if you appear for JE, you can either go to technical entry to the INA or the CME, that is in Pune, College of Military Engineering. So, and the next entry is the National Defense Academy, which is now open for women candidates also. So after 12th, you initially have to appear for NDA, which is a UPSC level exam. So once you clear the examination, you are selected for the Services Selection Board. Again, the selection rate is, I think, 0.03% something. So once you clear your Services Selection Board, then you appear for a medical exam. Medicals, then if you are medically fit, then um, merit list comes, and according to the vacancies, if you fit in the merit and the vacancy, if they are available, then you join the academy. So after 12th, you join as a permanent commission officer, not officer. So you have for training of 4 years. Like my brother is in India right now, he's in sixth term. So he joined back in 2023. So after that 3 years, he is in India. Since his service is Navy, he'll be going to the Indian Naval Academy in January, and then after that he'll be on ships, on board ships for 6 months. Post that, he'll get commissioned as an officer. After that, in Navy, he'll be subjected to training for another 2 years, which involves various ship tenures. It involves something called a sub courses, which is carried in Navy. So we have given look in all the branches or the cadres of the Indian Navy, and after that you get your first appointment. So for every service, there's a different way to get posted and different way to get your first appointment. For the Army and Air Force, again, the Air Force guys will go to Air Force Academy for permanent commission flying, and the Indian Army, they'll go to Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. But I joined as a short service commissioned officer after my engineering. That is, after graduation, there's another short service commission entry which is open for all. So in Navy, it is only technical, that is, only with BE or BTech can join Indian Navy as short service commissioned officers. But in Army and Air Force, non-tech background can also join. All you need is graduation in some field with basic 60% marks. Then you have to improvise on yourself. You have to build a basic skill set to appear for the services selection boards, get selected, and subsequently clear medicals and get into the merit. And for Navy, so it keeps changing. I was in Naval Academy for a year. In Air Force, it for some cadres it's 1 year, for some it's 1.5 years. In Army, again, for some it's 1 year, for some it's 1.5 year. So appointments take a lot of time. It is different for different cadres and different service. And yes, posting is a very end game, I'd say. It's a very long process. I myself took almost 2 years before getting into the academy, and it's been, I think, 8 months in as a posting. I'm still under training. I'm still not haven't got my appointment yet. So there's a long way to go.
Right. It sounds like a very long and rigorous process. And I'm sure, like you've mentioned earlier, if you persevere through it all, at the end of the day, how much you want the uniform is what matters. Right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing this. I think the next question is again for you. The question is, when you were sitting in the same classrooms that we are sitting in today, did you ever actually imagine yourself becoming an Air Force officer? Or was that something you discovered later? Because I think when we are asked about what we want to do, we act really confused, and it's hard.
Okay, so no, I did not imagine myself wearing this uniform. When I imagine myself sitting back in the same classrooms, I probably didn't know what I wanted to do after 10th. So all I knew was I have to go back home, study for the boards, and that's it. After that, I went to the college. I joined engineering. During my second year of engineering, during the COVID times, I got into NCC, and that is how I changed my career completely, like what I want to pursue. So initially, my plan was to go to Germany, pursue masters, like anybody in Pune, mostly in Pune would. But NCC changed my career path, and Yes, that's it. So, no, it's okay. It's definitely very much okay to not know what you want to do. Just do best at what you're doing right now. You might not score 50 on 50, 100 on 100, but make sure you learn something out of it. So, at the end of the day, at the end of your school, you should have gained something, some knowledge about something, because you never know what will help you next in the next decision. For example, my logic was simple. I got into engineering because again I didn't know what else to do. So as any other student would do, I got into engineering, so all my options will be open. So I chose again mechanical because my options will be open, and this is how I tracked it down. So I think giving your best in whatever you're doing right now is more important than imagining yourself somewhere, because eventually you'll get there.
Right. Thank you for
Thank
your honesty,
you.
ma'am. The next question is, I think, for Dr. Tanmay, is that if you could meet your 15-year-old self sitting in one of these classrooms that we sit in today, what would you tell him? Or rather, what would you tell us students at this point where we all have very different perspectives towards life, career choices, etc.?
I think I would tell my 15-year-old version that at some point in your life, you'll actually look forward to going to the job that you are doing at that point. It won't be out of boredom or because your parents have asked you to do it, or it won't be for all, I would say, reasons outside of yourself. It would be because you are actually interested in it. And I think telling it in that way would also shape a bit your perspective towards choosing what you want to do in life. Because many a times it can be because of all factors outside your own decision that you end up in a certain profession. I can completely understand that if that is the need for requirement. But if you have the option to make choices in your life, if you're free enough to do it, then please do pick something up that you can actually enjoy doing it for a few years.
Thank you, sir. I think highlighting the importance of choices and the power of choosing is actually very important. The next two questions are for you only. Is it okay if I combine them together? So the
Absolutely.
questions are, how important are marks and academic performance compared with skills and genuine interest when choosing a career in biology? And are there any other career options available for students who choose biology after 10th apart from becoming a doctor?
Sure. I mean, biology as a subject until you learn until 12th standard is something in textbooks. It's not close to what you would be applying doing it in research as well as in medicine later. It is very different from that. Those are professions, those are things where things are constantly developing. What you read in a textbook is something that has been very well established until 80s or 2000s. And these are things that become facts then, and people need to learn them if they want to study something else. When you're working in a biology lab, you're working at the edge of science. Most of the times, we don't know what is going to happen with our experiment. That's why we are doing it. If you knew exactly what you can expect out of it, it's not really an experiment. It's just putting more money down the drain to get results which you already knew from before. So a lot of biological science, that's why happens with people having a question and then finding out what are the different implications coming from that question. And I would be lying to say if marks and academic performance are not important. You have to stand yourself out from the rest of the people, but if you are showing genuine interest in it, it will be rewarded because it's not a subject where only marks will get you ahead. You have to show experimental capabilities. You should be able to do things with your hands. You need to be somebody who can persevere through challenges. So those are things which are a little bit outside of typical academic performances. So the combined picture is what you're working towards, and not just getting great marks, but also being and learning how to be a better scientist.
Right. So focusing on the end goal rather than focusing on marks here is what matters, right? Okay. Thank you so much, sir. I think the next question is for Tejas, sir. Someone has asked us that you're a dog trainer. If you could tell us a little bit more about that, then the students would really love it.
Okay, so I'm not a professional dog trainer. I'm a trained and certified dog trainer, but I don't do it professionally. Actually, I got certified because I wanted to have a dog, and I was like, I don't want to pay an external trainer to train him, and I was always interested in animals. So I did not actually pursue veterinary science as a career because I was of the opinion that if I choose that as a career, I'll end up getting fed up of it. So that was the main reason why I like animals a lot. And regarding dogs, I wanted to get a dog, and before that, I thought, why pay somebody else to train him? Might as well learn how to train a dog and practice on my own dog to see if it works. So that is why how I got the training done.
I think this is a very great answer for all pet enthusiasts who have pets at home and want to learn how to train them themselves, right? Okay, I think the next question, and this is going to be the last student question that we're going to take. It's going to be a common question for all three of you. So the question is, what's the closest that you came to giving up, and what is something that kept you going? If you can start with Tejas, sir, then.
Okay, I actually have two things. One is closest came to giving up and continuing was actually when I was sailing on board. I had kept short-term goals in mind. So I want to have my family come on board, for example. So I needed to reach a particular rank before they were allowed to come on board. So that is what I did. Well, another small thing was, okay, at least I want to reach a certain. There was no time limit I gave myself, but I was like, okay, this is some rank or some uh, position I want to reach. That is what I did. But eventually, if you look at it, I did pivot to the shore side because I was sure that I don't want to continue it long term. So as soon as my short term goal in that was achieved, I thought about it. Is it really worth continuing, or can I really do something else? So I did push through till my goals were achieved, but I did not keep moving the goalpost because I knew eventually that is going to cause burnout. It was very good for me in my 20s to keep sailing and travel the world and meet different people, see different countries. But as I entered my early 30s, I was like, no, I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my kids. And this is not something I would like to do till I'm 60. There are people who do that. So as soon as my short-term goals, so if you look at civics, there's a 5-year plan, there's a 10-year plan. So I had a 5-year became 7-year, but the 5-year plan was there. As soon as I reached that milestone, I was like, okay, now I'm going to do something else and do that. So I don't think I'd be the right person to say how I can push through because I did pivot eventually. But my suggestion is to keep one long-term goal in mind and several short-term goals. Because when you complete your short-term goal, you feel motivated. Okay, something if I directly keep one long-term goal 10 years in the future, in the middle I'll get frustrated. But if I have maybe 10 short-term goals that lead up to the long-term goal, as soon as one is done, I feel a little bit of happiness and motivation inside. So that is one way you can do.
Right. Thank you so much for saying that, sir. I think it's important to understand that at some point it's okay for your goals to change and for you to pivot somewhere. That does not necessarily mean that you're giving up. You just redirecting yourself towards a different goal, right? Tanmay, sir, if you could answer this question.
I think the most I felt this was in my first year of college. I had given all of the typical competitive exams at that point. I hoped to be in a national institute. I hoped to study in, I don't know, an ISER or an IIT at that point because I thought that's the only places where you can learn things or you can learn things better. And I was frustrated with the place I was being. I was studying in Ferguson College. I was doing a BSc program, and it felt like it was a low point in my life. But it was the same time when I was actually doing things by my own hands. I was slowly understanding what learning physics is. That's the first year where I was also making this microscope, for example, with my friends. And I got to know this much later. I think by the time I was graduating, that actually that experience helped me understand my subject much more than potentially a high pressure environment in a big national institute. I'm sure they are excellent with their teachers, but the education I was getting was not bad at all because it worked for me, because it inspired me to continue in that field. And I think that's the thing which I would say that got me out of a low point in life.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this, sir. Arpita ma'am, if you could answer this question.
Yes, for me it's simple. There's no plan B. So again, I'll repeat the same thing. Everything came down to how badly I wanted it. But of course, when I appeared for all the 8 attempts, I also started preparing for other services. But what I wanted for me, my family was very clear in my mind. Rather, what I didn't want was also very clear. So knowing what you don't want is also equally important as to what you want. So firstly, so there's no plan B. There was no option of giving up. But yes, I kept giving other examinations as well because in a field like services, you never know 100% that you'll get there because there are so many stages that you have to go through, and the selection rate is so small that you always have to keep up a plan. But yes, there's no plan B. I repeat.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your answer. I think this inspires a lot of students to just keep working towards their goal, no matter what the outcome. And at the same time, knowing that your hard work is going to pay off eventually, right? Okay. So we are towards the end of our session for today, and we won't be taking any further questions from students. If any student wishes to contact any of our panelists, they have given us their preferred mode of contact, which I am currently posting in the chat box. So you can contact Tanmay sir and Tejas sir through their preferred mode of contacts. However, we do not have the contact details for Arpita ma'am due to confidentiality concerns. But I'm sure we have gained enough inspiration from her. And still, if any student has any questions for her, then you can pass it on to either me and Shraddha ma'am, and we will convey it to her through the school platform itself. I would now like to formally propose a vote of thanks. I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for giving their valuable time to our students and for the wise word of guidance. I'm sure that our students are inspired by your journeys and that they've understood that to build a successful career in any field, hard work, dedication, and consistency is a must. I would also like to thank the school management for their continuous support and Mrs. Malti Kalmadi and Pallavi Naik ma'am for taking out the time to attend this program today. I would like to thank our dear principal Anjali Kulkarni ma'am for her guidance and patience throughout this entire process. I would like to thank the entire counseling unit and all my colleagues for their continuous support in the planning and execution of today's program. And lastly, I would like to thank all the students and parents for their active participation. Without them, this session wouldn't have been fruitful. Thank you so much. If Anjali ma'am or Malti ma'am would like to say a few words, that would be great.
Good evening, Malti ma'am. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. I'm so delighted that all the three speakers, you actually shared your life stories. And I think this is very important for us, especially for the students to understand when they are in school, that we are all in the exploratory stage. And there are certain life skills that they have to learn. And this, we cannot do it in schools, you know. But when you share, young people like you share your experiences, that matters, because children will have young role models. So thank you for being those beautiful role models, and God bless each one of you. Wishing you all the success, wishing you all the joy and happiness in your respective fields. It was, I mean, I had so much joy listening to all of you. So thank you. And Sadhna, thank you for coming.
Pleasure, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And Anjali, lovely for having started Parichay Diwas, because we are looking at, you know, this program should be continued monthly. And children should not be forced to join. School should just plan and inform the children that this is happening. And children in India should learn to connect, to log on and listen to all the wisdom that was shared today. Because in India, what happens otherwise, parents push the children and you do not allow the child to become a self-learner. But today, I saw about 63 people or whatever who were on call today are the ones who are actually self-learners. So round of applause to all the audience who was here. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring words. And I'm so glad to see you today in this program. Thank you so much. I also thank the speakers. All of them have been my students. So a big thank you to Arpita and Tejas, and of course Tanmay thank you to you as well for sharing your inspiring journeys with my students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anjali ma'am and Malti ma'am, for your kind words of wisdom. With this, I would like to officially conclude our very first Parichay Diwas for the academic year 2026-27. I would once again like to thank all our esteemed panelists for taking out so much of time today and sharing their journey with our students. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good day.
Good day.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.